Okay. If you were to ask me, if I was your father, let's put it this way. If I was your father, your question is, given my experience, given my history, given my culture, what will I tell you in regards to your education? Okay? First, my parents didn't have very much money. We washed cars for 20 years. Okay. This is long before I had you as a son. It's a hypothetical. I also come from Iran. It's a religious country for the most part. It's intensely political. So whether you want to or not, politics and religion live inside you. Also, technologically it's not very advanced. And so independence, individual freedom, they don't really exist because poverty brings people together, whereas privilege divides and fragments them. And when you don't have very many options in your country, the best path that your parents, society at large, encourage you to take is education. Especially, again, if you come from an intensely religious culture where educating your mind and educating your heart and becoming mindful and aware of your environment are far more superior than you having millions of dollars in the bank. Now, that's the culture that you need to know. Then is me coming here as an immigrant. And when you come here as an immigrant, you don't really have much. Now, I'm not going to talk about racism. I'm not going to talk about bigotry. I'm not going to talk about prejudice of the dominant culture that imposes itself upon those who don't look at us immigrants favorably. Now, when I came here, I delivered newspaper in Davis. Then I became a janitor. Then I worked at Church's Fried Chicken. Then I worked graveyard at Shell gas station at Del Paso Heights. Then I worked at a gas station, graveyard. Then my parents came here and we washed cars for about 20 years. So my life, for the most part, has been consumed by manual labor. I didn't win the lotto. I wasn't born in a space of privilege, so I had to work hard for everything. Then I hated school. I'm an introvert to some extent, so by nature I'm somewhat rebellious to authority. And because I have a good amount of passion inside me, I went to school, but I didn't like it. But I had tried other things, nothing worked for me. School was the last option, not because I liked it, not because I wanted to, but I was forced into it. And so I did philosophy. My parents were not happy. Because when you come from a culture that has religion and philosophy and politics in it, you don't need more philosophy. What you need is money. Okay? So initially, all immigrants send their kids, at least from the Middle East, India, send their kids to America so that they become engineers, doctors, people who can make a good amount of money, allegedly. And so I was a complete disappointment to them because I did philosophy. A bachelor's in philosophy doesn't do much for you. A master's in philosophy, it can open some doors, but you still need more power. So you do a PhD, and that gives you a good amount of power, but then you have to look for jobs and, sell yourself or sell your mind and emotions. You have to be animated in the interviews. And let's say you're my son now, and you're 15 or 16 or 17, you come to me and say, I don't want to go to school. First, you need to understand that you and I are immigrants. And because of my age, because of my experience, I've had a lot of students who wanted to go into the creative arts, become dancers, musicians. They want to play football or basketball or whatever. And it's a very, very competitive space to be in. And there's a good chance, because of my history, I'm going to push you to go to school. I'll force you. I may even become physically violent towards you, just in case you disobey me, because you're my son. And I have a good amount of investment inside you. I have put my life on pause. I have spent my money on you. I've spent my time on you. In essence, I've really spent my life on you. And you want to throw it away because you're now living in America and you assume that your feelings are very, very important. That if you feel that you don't want to go to school, then I should support you. I'm not going to do that because that's not my narrative. And if in the past, like 5-10 years, since I've been teaching philosophy, if I've come to realize that you don't really have much interest in philosophy, sure, that's going to be disappointing for me, because you have to be philosophically minded if you want to survive life. You have to think about things really seriously, because life is cruel, it's brutal, it's indifferent towards you, and it's going to demolish you every chance it gets. And so you have to be able to think well about things. And if I've come to realize that you just don't like to think, whether you're lazy or you have no interest, or maybe you just, like the rest of us, you have to live your life through your emotions until you realize that you've been deceived by your emotions, and now you're forced at the age of 50 or 60. You become a drunk, you become addicted to various substances. Then they say, maybe I should evaluate my life. I don't want to see those things about you, so I'm going to push you to go to school. So if I don't see you being interested in philosophy or religious studies, I'm going to say, why don't you do business? Well, I'll say, why don't you be a doctor? If I realize you're not that smart, just do business. And you can't go to San Jose, you can't go to San Francisco, you have to go to Berkeley. Maybe accepted in their Haas program. And then once you get your bachelor's in business, for example, I'm going to push you to do your master's. Because I know as an immigrant what it means to not have power and what it means to have power. What it means not to have stability versus what it means to have stability. A bachelor's degree will give you some stability, but it won't be enough in the 21st century. So I'm going to push you to do a master's. And there are two agendas in me pushing you towards a master's degree. First, because I, as an instructor, have a lot of connections with various departments, various faculty members. Once you get your master's degree, you can start teaching. Initially part-time, hopefully full-time. It won't make you very much money, but you'll at least know how much money you'll make every month. And so it'll give you a good idea how much you can spend, what kind of a car you can buy, what sort of a house you can buy, where you can live, whether you can send your kids to private school or public school. I mean, you need that power. If in life you don't have power, then you're going to be walking in the dark. And at any times, things are going to come at you. And if you don't have a defense mechanism, they're just going to break you. Okay? And you were born here. I was born in Iran. So I know what it means to be an immigrant. I know what it means not to have. I know what it means to struggle. You don't know any of that stuff. It's something that my parents and I and my sibling, my brothers and sisters, we talk about this stuff all the time. That our kids, they were spoon-fed. When they came here, they had a house that we bought. They had a car that we bought. They had a business that we struggled to create. So they didn't have any blood and sweat in anything that they had in their life. They were born in privilege. They will never be like us. They'll be very lucky if they can be a quarter of who and what we are. And we love our kids, but without work, your life, you don't really have a core inside you. So let's just say you have this disdain, this disgust for teaching, being in a classroom. Then you can go get a job somewhere in a company. And just in case you're one of those kids that just are very, very rebellious, parents are jerks, my father is a this or a that, and you just want to become a bum. Like any parent, I'll eventually adjust, become used to your ridiculousness. We'll go out, we'll hang out, we'll have a good time, but deep down, you're a disappointment. Because I know you don't have a future. You're never going to be a musician, you're never going to be a dancer, you're never going to be a painter. You're going to work at Home Depot, in and out. I mean, it's okay, don't get me wrong, these are good jobs to have, but if you want a family, if you want stability in life, and you're not like Jesus Christ, where you say, man does not live by bread alone. If you're an ordinary person like me, you need bread, man. Your spiritual life is down the road like 50 years from now. You need a companion, maybe you need or want kids. It requires money. Rent requires money. Food requires money. Entertainment requires money. A woman can hang out with you because you're a good-looking guy for maybe 2-3 months. Eventually, she wants to be entertained, man. She wants to know that you are rich in thinking, in feeling, that you can study your environment and come up with a great conversation once in a while. Otherwise, your relationship is going to have a very, very short shelf life. If on the other hand, I have a hot dog stand and I'm making $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month, why the hell would I push you to go to school? Especially if my business is prospering. I'm going to say, why don't we buy another hot dog stand and we'll get a permit from the city and you can go over there. Your life is made. Ultimately, the richer your life experience, the more options you can provide for your children. The more poor you are in experience, you can't offer very many options to your kids. And so when your life experiences are poor, when you're intellectually poor, you can't do much for your kids. They'll just follow in your footsteps. So you need the encouragement of your parents, and you need the encouragement of your culture. If you have parents who push you towards education, but you have a culture that diminishes the value of education, your parents have to struggle to go against the culture to protect you against the toxicity of society so that you can continue with your school. If you don't have parents who encourage you to go to school, and you have a culture that says school is ridiculous, there's no reason to learn, and America is really good in that area, then you need an elder of sorts. Accidentally you run into a Socrates, or you sign up for a class in geography, and you have an instructor named Mark Rosan, and you realize, man, this guy is really inspiring. He talks about geography in a way that it just comes to life. And he inspires you. And he becomes your intellectual father. And you go to his office, and you ask him questions, and then he guides you. And then he says, these are the classes you need to take to graduate. If you want to major in geography, I can help you in this way or that way. In the absence of that, you just got to figure things out on your own. And that's never an easy thing, and it's never a good thing. Because For the past many, many thousands of years, we've been trying to create GPS, some sort of a mapping of sorts, to create a life that you're able to see what that life's future looks like. You just don't want to take classes. You want to take classes in order to graduate. You just don't want to graduate. You want to graduate so you can find a job. You just don't want to find a job. You find the job so you can make money. You make money so you can buy a car, so you can buy a house, so you can have a family. We are future-oriented people. And so when your future is a little confused, it's a little murky, you're going to have a really, really difficult time. Stay in school. It's not fun. School is awful. It sucks. If you have any passion inside you, school will kill it. Unless you run into a good instructor. But you don't go to school to have fun. You go to school because you are fearful of your future. You graduate, hopefully in a field that makes you money. And should you realize at the age of 40 or 50, having amassed $1 million or so in your savings account, that your life is meaningless, and then at the age of 40 or 50, you come to that Jesus, in fact, was right, that human beings do not just live by bread alone, you quit your job. You have enough money. You want to go to the mountains and contemplate about the meaning of life? Fine. But until then, whatever spiritual or creativities you may have inside you, put them in a closet, lock the door. Do something that's solid, that'll give you stability. You can help out your mom, your dad with money, financially, and then, whatever. If I was your father, and if you came home every day and you saw me drunk or get high, there's a 90% chance that you turn out to be like me. I am your first map in life. I'm your first role model. You will copy what I do. And if I happen to be some sort of a bum, that's for the most part your future. Unless a Messiah walks into your life. Maybe it's a great companion who loves you and wants better things for you. She'll inspire you. But all of us need someone, that's for sure. Indra? Faith or fate? Faith. Well, faith contains a good element of trust. And because human beings are four-story animals, you can have faith and you can have trust in the ground you walk on. Because we've done it every single day. And the earth is not going to open up and swallow you unless there's an earthquake. And even if there's an earthquake where the earth before you just opens up, your trust in the ground that you're walking on will probably be shattered for maybe a week if you're lucky. Eventually you'll forget the whole thing and you'll gain your trust and faith back, and that the ground is not going to open up. So that's the physical aspect of it. When it comes to emotions, it's very, very, very different. Imagine that you and I are in a relationship. Now, there is this novel period in all relationships. We romanticize it. It is completely disconnected from reality. That you and I are going to live in Hawaii. We're going to swim every single day, get tan, and life's miseries and disasters are never going to visit us. It's kind of like the story of the Buddha, that your relationship will never suffer any wrinkles. That's really the beginning story of every romantic relationship. And so there's a good amount of trust in that, fantasy in that, faith in that. And then the truth is, human beings are very, very complicated animals. Not only am I confused about who I am, what future holds for me, I'm also confused about who you are, what you are, and what future holds for you. Add to it the fact that I have to figure out who and what we are together. That's a lot of stuff to work through. Now, because I'm not really equipped to wrestle with all those very unknown and unique elements, I have to pick and choose which stories and which layers of this relationship I want to work with. And so I say, okay, if she's a good cook, we eat together and we watch a movie. I can have faith in that until you go to work, there are some troubles at work, you come home and you're very, very disturbed and you want to have a conversation about it, and you realize I'm not listening to you. I don't really care what happened to you because it's out of the ordinary things that we do on a daily basis. And that disappoints you. And that's a small crack in the dam, And because life, again, is complicated and it makes everyone suffer in some shape or form, eventually I have another day at work which is quite bad, perhaps worse than yours. I come to talk to you, but you're busy with other things. And little by little, distance grows between us. And so faith and trust that we had in the relationship in one another slowly kind of suffers minor cracks, and then it becomes major. There is also intellectual faith and trust, which is, you're 18, you've never been in a relationship, all of a sudden you find yourself in one, and you're inspired, you're excited, i.e., you're in love, and you go around screaming, I'm in love, people look at me. Kind of like the Tom Cruise, if you're able to take your imaginations back all the way to the Oprah Winfrey show, where he was being interviewed and then he expressed that he was in love. And then he began jumping on the sofa very excitedly. Good for him, by the way. You're intoxicated, you're drunk by an experience, by a set of emotions created by the experience. And so you trust and you begin to build all sorts of mansions on this fantasy, emotion called love, that we're going to get married, we're going to have a happy life, we're going to have kids, we're going to love him. And that's what happens when you put a good amount of trust and faith in something that doesn't have much stability. And because we are emotional animals after all, which means that the moment you try to place stability in emotions, or you try to build things on emotions, it means that you have this faith, or that you have this trust that these emotions are never going to disappear. If you're in love today, you're going to be in love tomorrow, you're going to be in love next week, next month, next year, next decade, for the rest of your life. And the truth is, emotions have no stability to them. The Stoics kind of taught that to us really, really well, that the only thing that you can really trust is your powers of observation, your powers of reflection, and the better you can reflect, the better you can observe things, the more stable you are on the inside. Because the world is always changing. And the world, because it's always changing, the world creates emotions inside you, destroys those emotions, generates new emotions. So you're always like a yo-yo in the hands of the physical world. Today you love your phone, tomorrow AT&T comes up with a great plan, all of a sudden you hate your phone, and so you go to the store, you buy a new phone, 2 months later another ad comes up, and this is this love and hate scenario that takes place inside us. So What really the Stoics want to educate us is that the only thing you can really have faith in, the only thing that you can really trust is yourself. But it's just not any self they're talking about. There is nothing wrong with you going into the world and being disrupted by the forces of the world. But allow those disruptions to jolt you for maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. But don't let that experience become your personality. Don't let the world create an identity inside you, because it's false. Don't get frozen in an experience that's negative. And the Stoics argue that the only thing that you should really trust, the only thing that you should really, really, really love is your ability to be very detached. I mean, you're profoundly engaged in things. But you also know that you came into this world naked and you're going to leave naked. That life is going to, you're walking, you're naked, you're empty on the inside. Life is going to put an experience before you. And it's going to fill you. And you're going to be excited. And the Stoics say, the world gave you this, the world will take it away. Naked you came, naked you will go. The world will eventually get you naked. Don't become attached. Love. But no, at any time. I was, talking to my kid yesterday, and he says, so Dad, have you ever had a heart attack? I said, no. You think you're going to have one soon? I don't know, maybe. So how should I be when you die? I don't really know how you should be. You can be however you want. It really depends on our bond. If we don't have a great relationship, then you're going to cry for 5 minutes. If our relationship has been very, very strong, you're going to probably cry and grieve for about a month or two, and then you'll recover. That's how the world is. No one is going to be in this grief mode forever, especially if you happen to be young and the world is waiting for you. So it doesn't mean that just because the world gives you and the world takes, that you shouldn't love, you shouldn't trust. It just means that the only thing that's worthy of having faith in and trusting is yourself. But not the self that the world creates, not the self that romantic relationships create, not the self that kids create. And this is kind of esoteric in the sense that it's really advanced teachings. You're a mother, you got 4 kids. Your kids are who you are. Are you telling me that I should be something other than a mother? The Stoics, perhaps, maybe it's a philosophy made for men. I don't really know. And there is this other thing. You lose yourself in experiences, but you don't get lost in them. In other words, just in case an expectation doesn't come true, you don't get confused, then lost, then depressed, then chronic depression. And so the question is, well, how do you create a self in which you can trust? That despite all the brutalities of life, at the end of the day, you can go home and say, hi, I know, today ABCD happened to you. I know some of the experiences were really, really quite awful and traumatic. But I'm glad that I left them behind when I came inside the house. There you are. Let's sit and have a good day or have a nice dinner. And initially, it's going to be a failed attempt. So just because you read some esoteric philosophy that encourages you to figure out what sort of a self you should cultivate and possess and own. I think the first decade or two, you're going to struggle. And not only is the world going to disappoint you, you're going to disappoint you as well, because you keep reading, you keep wanting to apply the ideas to yourself, only it's not going to work. Unlike anything else, you're in the business of cooking, but you're not cooking an omelet, you're not cooking chicken, you're cooking a self. And very much like if you're new to cooking, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to waste a lot of money. You're going to waste a lot of gas. You're going to waste a lot of electricity. You're going to waste a lot of food. And this is going to be the same. You're going to waste a lot of energy trying to figure out how to create the self that best fits you, your temperament. And if you don't give up, if you're able to just keep at it for a long, long, long time, after maybe 15, 20 years, you'll become really, really good. Now, let me I'll refer to this book, and it's a book that you have read a couple of times, but our two young friends here haven't. It'll be a nice book if you're interested in reading. It's about how you can create a self that's worth having. The book is called Daughter of Fire. It's about a 50-year-old woman, I think Russian and German and English. I'm not quite sure what she is, but she's a little bit of all of it. I think she was born in the 30s or 40s or 50s. Not born, but maybe in the 1920s. And her first marriage didn't go well, and so she divorced. Her second marriage was relatively well, but the husband died. She never had children. At the age of 47, 48, she realized that what Jesus had said, human beings don't just live by bread, they need something spiritual. So she goes to India with the assumption that she knows what the spiritual path is all about. And by spiritual path, I mean a self that you can create and trust, that self becomes your lifelong companion and partner. It'll never disappoint you. And just in case life offers you a really, really bad experience, this particular self that you've cultivated over the years comes up as a Messiah and rescues you. It's the God within, so to speak. And so she has all these assumptions about herself, that she's able to learn, she's ready to learn, she's mature enough to learn, she has a tough skin, thick skin, that just in case she finds a teacher and her teacher looks at her and says, "You're ridiculous, awful, an idiot," she'll be fine. And so when she encounters this particular man, he tells her that you need to write all of your experiences down. The book is about 1,000 pages. It's a diary. And when you read this book, what you realize is that this teacher, whom she calls Bhai Sahib, is like a tsunami. He abuses her, he brutalizes her, and I only say that because she's brutalized because she's attached. She assumes the wrong things about herself. She thinks that she's a good Christian, and he has to spend a lot of time educating her, making her understand that she's not a Christian at all. If you're not a Christian, you can't be a good Christian. She thinks that she's ready to learn, and he has to spend a lot of time making her understand that she doesn't have the capacity to learn. And he makes her naked, metaphorically speaking. He takes her money, he takes her time, he takes her life basically for about 10 years, and she is completely dependent on him, completely. And that's one of the things that it doesn't go well with Western thinking. Western-minded people assume that they can have their independence, that they're in charge, that no one can tell them what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And so when they go to India and they find a teacher who's actually a teacher, not one of those pretend ones like Eckhart Tolle and Sadhguru, where they go on the stage and they talk to like thousands of people and assuming that everybody can hear, everybody can understand, everybody is there to learn. So teaching, for the most part, is a one-to-one phenomenon. It doesn't take place on a massive level. It can never. Because the task of a teacher is to empty you from within with all the garbage that you have accumulated through your own experience, with the way you have romanticized life, the way society has demolished you, but you think it's actually good for you. So he has to take everything out, and he does. And then he creates this dependency where she is completely dependent on him. Okay? And then what he does is he slowly creates a self inside her. You know, it's like you love your mom and you love your dad, and every night they sit and read books with you. And you say, man, I've sat and read books with my parents for the past 15 years. One morning your father comes to you and says, you know, son, you know, I'm like 65, 70. You know, I don't know how much more life I have, but I could pass at any time. I need to know that you'll be okay once I die. And the son says, oh, father, don't be ridiculous. I know it's a ridiculous thing to say, but I just want to let you know that things happen in life. You know, young people die quickly without really any warning. Old people live a long time until they're just hooked up to machines. So life is this machine of injustice, unfairness. So I'm just here to let you know that I could die at any time. And of course, it's a tease, but it really isn't. It's making sure that you're readying your son for the inevitable. And then, you know, your son forgets this conversation that you had with him. 2 weeks later, he comes home and you're not there. And you hear that your mom is weeping and your sister is weeping. What's going on? Dad died. And you've had this dependency on your father for the past 25, 30 years. And all of a sudden, he's there no more. You're going to go through this grieving period. It's going to be devastating. You don't want to think about the memories you've created. You don't want to think about the things you've written about your father, your journeys, all that stuff together. And so you'll kind of just go into this cave of darkness. You're completely depressed. Then little by little, out of the ashes of life, you begin to slowly put the pieces together. What your father has said to you over the years. And all of a sudden you realize everything that your father has said to you over the past like 5, 10, 15, 20 years has given birth to this indestructible self. For some strange reason, you're able to understand. You're able to kind of cloak your grief in understanding. You're able to express yourself in understanding. There's a good amount of sorrow and sadness and disappointment, but you deal with all of them profoundly, reflectively, maturely, and it's a self, as the Hindus would say, that will never, ever, ever be contaminated by anything. Not even death can destroy it.